James Carville thought he could throw shade at Trump and Melania on live TV, but what happened next left him completely speechless. Karoline Leavitt didn't just clap back, she destroyed him, and the internet is still on fire. "You're gonna want to see this." James Carville, the bold, brash, and battle-hardened Democratic strategist who helped mastermind Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential win, has never been known for mincing words. His thick Southern accent and rapid-fire delivery have made him a staple of political commentary for decades. But in a recent on-air segment discussing Donald Trump's influence in the upcoming 2024 election, Carville didn't just criticize Trump's policies or campaign tactics. He went personal, very personal. As the conversation unfolded, Carville started with the usual Democratic talking points, labeling Trump as chaotic, divisive, and dangerous. But then, he took a hard turn. With a smirk on his face and unmistakable derision in his voice, Carville said, "Donald Trump is a man increasingly detached from reality, and even Melania seems to be distancing herself from this circus quietly." The accusation wasn't just political, it was deeply personal. According to Carville, Melania Trump, the former First Lady known for her elegance, reserved demeanor, and strong sense of privacy, was, in his view, embarrassed by her husband's behavior. He painted a picture of a woman fed up, emotionally disengaged, and possibly even ashamed of standing beside Donald Trump in the public eye. It was the kind of comment that gets attention, and it did. Within minutes, clips of the moment were already circulating on social media. Carville's words were met with immediate backlash from conservatives, Trump supporters, and political observers, who felt the line had been crossed. Some accused him of speculating about a marriage he knows nothing about. Others saw it as a calculated attempt to sow doubt about Trump's image, using Melania's famously quiet and reserved personality against her. But it wasn't just what Carville said, it was how he said it. His tone was dismissive, almost sneering. He didn't present his statement as a theory or an analysis. He delivered it like a fact, as if he had insider knowledge of Melania's emotional state and intentions. The implication was clear. Even Trump's wife wants nothing to do with him. For some viewers, it was vintage Carville, provocative, unfiltered, and ruthless in his political attacks. But for others, especially those who followed Melania Trump's approach to public life, it felt like a low blow. Melania has always chosen to stay out of the spotlight, unless absolutely necessary. She rarely grants interviews, avoids the drama, and carefully curates her public appearances. To many, that has always been a sign of dignity, not disapproval. Still, Carville's insinuation struck a chord. His comment touched on a long-standing media obsession, the Trump marriage. Over the years, everything from Melania's body language to her social media posts has been scrutinized and spun into theories about her happiness or lack thereof. The speculation ramped up every time she pulled her hand away from Trump's in a photo op or skipped a campaign event. For critics, those moments were seen as signs of strain. For supporters, they were simply the behaviors of a private woman who never sought the spotlight. So when Carville went on live television and presented this idea, that Melania was purposefully and quietly distancing herself from her husband, it felt like he was trying to breathe new life into a narrative that many felt was played out, or worse, unfair. But Carville likely knew exactly what he was doing. In the high-stakes world of political messaging, every word counts. And attacking someone like Trump, who is known for presenting himself as powerful, in control, and supported by a glamorous and loyal wife, hits at the heart of his carefully built image. If Melania were perceived as pulling away, it could hurt Trump's brand, both politically and personally. That's what made the comment so potent and so controversial. And yet, while Carville might have expected some media buzz or pushback, what he likely didn't expect was what happened next, a fiery and fearless rebuttal that would leave him stunned and scrambling for words, because someone was watching and ready to respond. Karoline Leavitt, the sharp-tongued 20-something. Firebrand, who served as a White House assistant press secretary under Donald Trump, didn't waste a second. As soon as James Carville's comments about Donald and Melania Trump began circulating online, she was ready. But no one expected what would come next. A precise, poised, and downright blistering rebuttal that left political commentators across the spectrum stunned. It all unfolded live, just minutes after Carville's controversial segment aired. Leavitt was scheduled to appear on the same network to discuss GOP strategy ahead of the 2024 election. But once she caught wind of Carville's remarks, she took control of the moment. With the poise of a veteran and the fire of someone with something to prove, Leavitt shifted her focus and went straight at Carville. And she didn't hold back. Looking directly into the camera with calm intensity, she began with a subtle but savage jab. It's always interesting to hear James Carville talk about reality when he spent the last several decades twisting it for political gain. Right away, the tone was set. This wasn't going to be a soft deflection or a polite disagreement. This was a direct challenge to Carville's credibility, not just about his latest remarks, but about his role in shaping narratives over the years. Leavitt wasn't just defending Donald and Melania Trump, she was exposing what she called a pattern of partisan manipulation by the Democratic elite. She then pivoted, locking in on what she called one of the most baseless, desperate personal attacks she'd seen in recent months. Carville's claim that Melania Trump was distancing herself from Donald because she was embarrassed. Leavitt's voice grew firmer, but she remained composed. Let's be very clear. Melania Trump is one of the most private, dignified, and graceful first ladies in modern American history. She doesn't chase headlines. She doesn't play political games. And she certainly doesn't owe James Carville, or anyone else, a public display of her marriage. You could feel the air change in the studio. Viewers at home saw something they weren't used to seeing in political television. A young conservative woman not only going toe-to-toe with an established Democratic powerhouse, but dismantling his narrative in real time. Leavitt continued. Just because Melania chooses not to make herself a spectacle doesn't mean she's ashamed of her husband. Her silence isn't weakness, it's strength. Her composure is not distance, it's discipline. And just like that, she flipped Carville's insinuation on its head. Instead of letting his remarks frame Melania as checked out or embarrassed, Leavitt framed her as thoughtful, self-assured, and grounded, a woman unwilling to play into the media circus that so many others seem to crave. She reminded viewers that Melania has consistently avoided drama, focused on her family, and has always maintained a powerful presence even in her absence from the spotlight. Then came the line that would go viral across X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. James Carville has been wrong about every major election in the last decade. Maybe it's time he stopped pretending to speak for anyone but himself. Boom. It was a mic drop moment. And it wasn't just a slick soundbite. It resonated. Social media lit up within minutes. Clips of Leavitt's takedown began trending, with hashtags like Leavitt vs Carville and Defend Melania climbing the charts. Even some centrist commentators were impressed with how effortlessly she dismantled the argument without losing her cool or resorting to personal attacks of her own. Her approach was sharp but respectful. Critical, but not cruel. She didn't sink to the level of speculation or tabloid-style gossip. Instead, she rose above it, challenging the underlying assumption that a quiet first lady must somehow be disengaged or unhappy. More importantly, she offered something many viewers hadn't seen in a while, a young conservative voice that didn't sound rehearsed or robotic. Karoline Leavitt came across as authentic, articulate, and fearless. What made this moment even more powerful was that James Carville, the man known for his quick wit and sharp comebacks, had no rebuttal. In the brief split-screen reaction, shot aired after her comments, he appeared taken aback, uncharacteristically silent. And that silence said it all. The power dynamic had flipped. What started as a routine appearance for Karoline Leavitt turned into a career-defining moment, One that not only put her firmly on the national radar, but also reminded viewers that the next generation of political voices isn't here to play nice. They're here to fight, smart, sharp, and straight to the point. And for one unforgettable moment on live TV, the veteran was outplayed by the newcomer. Not with noise, but with truth. What began as another heated night of political commentary quickly turned into a defining moment. Not just for the debate at hand, but for the rising conservative voice who stole the spotlight. Karoline Leavitt, poised and unapologetic, wasn't just defending Donald and Melania Trump. She was dismantling an entire media narrative in real time. And as she kept talking, the energy in the room shifted. Leavitt didn't back down after her initial rebuttal. In fact, she doubled down, calmly but fiercely. With precision and confidence far beyond her years, she called out a pattern she said had become all too familiar in American media and democratic politics. "This isn't new," she said. "Whenever Democrats start losing the argument, whether it's on border security, inflation, or foreign policy, they pivot. They turn to personal attacks. And if they can't hit Trump directly, they go after his family, his wife, his children, anyone who dares to stand beside him." You could hear the studio grow quiet. Leavitt continued. "They can't win on results, so instead they try to win on rumors. That's why you have James Carville, a man who hasn't accurately called an election in over a decade, suddenly pretending to be an expert on someone's marriage. It was devastating, not because it was cruel or crude, but because it was true." Her critique resonated with viewers who had grown weary of the non-stop speculation, innuendo, and character attacks that had come to dominate so much of political coverage. Leavitt wasn't just defending Melania Trump's dignity, she was challenging the very foundation of how political discourse is framed in the media. Then came the moment no one expected. Producers brought James Carville back on screen via a split-screen format, likely anticipating a rebuttal or at least some of his trademark sarcasm. But what viewers got was something entirely different. There he was, James Carville, the raging Cajun, the man known for dominating cable news debates for decades, sitting silently, watching, blinking, waiting. He looked visibly stunned, and Leavitt, sensing the moment, didn't flinch. She pushed forward with calm authority, ending her remarks with a knockout line that would instantly ignite the internet. James Carville has been wrong about every major election in the last decade. Maybe it's time he stops pretending to speak for anyone but himself. The studio went silent, but social media exploded. Within minutes, hashtags like "Psych Carville speechless," "A Leavitt strikes back," and "Melania deserves respect" were trending on X, formerly Twitter. The clip of her closing statement was clipped, edited, captioned, and reposted across all major platforms. Conservative influencers, Republican lawmakers, and independent media voices flooded their feeds with praise for Leavitt's composure and precision. Even some moderate and left-leaning commentators admitted Carville got outplayed. On TikTok, a short 15-second cut of Leavitt's final line pulled in over 5 million views in 24 hours. On YouTube, reaction videos popped up almost instantly, with titles like "Carville left stunned by Leavitt's savage response" and "This is how you destroy media bias on live TV." But what made this moment resonate wasn't just the political theater. It was what it represented. To many viewers, especially young conservatives, Leavitt's performance wasn't just about defending Trump or Melania. It was about standing up to a media machine that so often seems stacked against them. It was about exposing the double standard, how Democratic figures can attack without consequences, but Republicans are expected to stay quiet or play defense. And more importantly, it showed that a new generation of conservative voices isn't just here to repeat talking points. They're here to win arguments, with facts, poise, and clarity. Leavitt's moment marked something bigger, a symbolic passing of the torch. While Carville represents the old guard of democratic messaging, a strategy built on bravado, mockery, and relentless spin, Leavitt represents the new era, sharp, composed, and unafraid to challenge the narrative head-on. By the end of the E1 segment, viewers didn't just remember what was said, they remembered who wasn't saying anything. Carville, known for filleting his opponents with clever one-liners and seasoned jabs, had no comeback. And in the world of live television, that silence was louder than any word he could have spoken. Beyond the trending hashtags, viral soundbites, and YouTube shorts, something much more profound happened during that on-air exchange between James, Carville, and Karoline Leavitt. It was more than just a fiery media moment. It was a symbolic turning point. It peeled back the curtain on where American politics truly stands in 2025 and what voters are really craving in their leaders and messengers. For years, the political class has operated under a familiar script: flashy sound bites, well-rehearsed talking points, and a heavy reliance on legacy status. Names like James Carville have dominated cable news and elite political circles for decades, not just because of their knowledge, but because of their ability to command the narrative. But times are changing, and fast. This moment proved that the American people, especially younger voters and those outside the coastal media bubbles, aren't just looking for pedigree or experience anymore. They're hungry for something more raw, more real. They want authenticity. They want passion. They want people who speak like them, think like them, and most importantly, stand up for what they believe in, even when it's not convenient or popular. And that's exactly what Karoline Leavitt delivered. Her defense of Donald and Melania Trump wasn't laced with platitudes or safe phrasing. It was bold, unapologetic, and most of all, rooted in principle. She wasn't just arguing against Carville, she was calling out a much larger trend: the way the mainstream media often crosses the line between public accountability and personal invasion. When Carville took that jab at Melania, painting her as embarrassed and distancing herself from her husband, he tapped into a narrative the media has flirted with for years. Melania Trump, always private and reserved, has often been a target of speculation because she doesn't constantly appear at rallies, give interviews, or speak out on political issues. Critics use that silence to cast doubt or spin theories about her loyalty or feelings toward her husband. But Leavitt challenged that directly and effectively. She reminded the audience of a powerful truth: privacy is not the same as guilt, and silence is not the same as shame. Melania, as Leavitt pointed out, has consistently carried herself with dignity and restraint, refusing to become part of the political chaos or media circus. And that, far from being a weakness, is a strength, especially in today's age of constant noise. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, Melania's quiet composure speaks volumes, and Leavitt gave voice to that dignity in a way few have dared to before. But the moment wasn't just about defending one former First Lady. It was about drawing a line in the sand. It was about rejecting the idea that personal smears should replace political debate. And in doing so, Leavitt positioned herself as part of a new generation of conservative voices, a generation unafraid to push back, to fight fire with fire, but to do so with clarity, grace, and strength. Perhaps most striking was the dynamic between her and Carville. Here was a young woman, barely in her 30s, going toe-to-toe with a man who's been a dominant force in democratic politics since the early 1990s. And yet in this moment, Carville looked like the one out of place. Rattled, outdated, and unsure of how to respond. His silence was more telling than anything he could have said. It was a generational clash, and the future won. For many viewers, this wasn't just a satisfying moment of political theater. It was hopeful. It showed that the next wave of leadership isn't afraid of the media, isn't intimidated by legacy names, and isn't willing to let baseless attacks go unchecked. It proved that the conservative movement has powerful, articulate voices ready to step into the spotlight and fight for truth, fairness, and dignity. And in a broader sense, it reminded everyone watching that politics isn't just about left versus right. It's about how we treat each other, about the lines we draw between public critique and personal decency. about knowing when commentary becomes cruelty, and having the courage to call it out. So while James Carville's remarks may have made headlines, it was Karoline Leavitt's response that made history. Not because it was loud, but because it was right, and in that moment, millions of Americans saw something they've been waiting for, a new kind of leadership, strong, smart, and unafraid. So where does this leave us? What started as a routine political segment turned into a viral flashpoint, and now it's echoing far beyond that one night of television. The dust has yet to settle, but the aftershocks are already reshaping the political landscape in ways that few saw coming. First, let's talk about James Carville. The veteran Democratic strategist has remained noticeably silent in the days since the broadcast. No tweets, no op-eds, no cable news victory lap. That's unusual for someone who's made a career out of being loud, provocative, and ready to go toe-to-toe with anyone on live television. Insiders say Carville didn't expect that kind of pushback, especially not from someone half his age, and it showed. Meanwhile, the network that aired the segment, they're cashing in. The clip has been replayed on a loop across their programming. Panels have debated every second of the exchange. Online platforms are using it for engagement. They know a lightning-in-a-bottle moment when they see one, and they're riding the wave. But the real story is Karoline Leavitt. In the hours and days following the viral takedown, Leavitt has become more than just a political staffer or media personality. She's become a symbol. Her inbox is full. Her phone is ringing non-stop. Conservative talk shows, YouTube creators, and even mainstream news anchors have all reached out for follow-up interviews. The praise has been swift and overwhelming. Viewers called her performance refreshing, fearless, and exactly what the movement needs. And it's not just internet buzz. Word inside the Trump 2024 media operation is that Leavitt is now being eyed as a key media surrogate heading into the most consequential election cycle in modern history. Some insiders are even calling her the next Kayleigh McEnany, noting her composure under pressure, sharp messaging instincts, and ability to stay on point while dismantling opposition attacks. She didn't just defend Trump and Melania, she defended a movement. And that matters, because this wasn't just a viral clip. This was a cultural reset, a symbolic passing of the torch from the old political elite to a new fearless generation. For years, conservatives have felt steamrolled by media bias, mocked by establishment figures and cornered into playing defense. But this moment showed something different. They're done playing nice. This is the new wave. And Karoline Leavitt just rode the first one in. It's also a sign of how political discourse is evolving. Voters are less interested in resumes and more focused on authenticity. They don't want rehearsed talking points. They want passion, conviction, and people who will actually fight. Leavitt's response hit all three. And here's the deeper truth. While Carville's comments about Melania Trump may have seemed like just another jab from a partisan pundit, they struck a nerve because they crossed a line. Americans are tired of seeing public figures' families dragged through the mud for political gain. Melania, who has stayed mostly out of the spotlight since leaving the White House, didn't deserve to be the target of cheap speculation. Leavitt's defense reminded people of that, and it resonated. It also flipped the script. For once, a conservative voice wasn't on the back foot. She wasn't defending against a scandal. She wasn't dodging a question. She was offensive, clear, and surgical, calling out hypocrisy and refusing to let the media twist the narrative. It was a power shift, and everyone watching could feel it. And let's not forget the reaction from younger voters. On platforms like TikTok and Instagram, where political content usually struggles to break through, clips of Leavitt's exchange exploded. It wasn't just older conservative voters cheering, it was college students, young professionals, even some independents saying, "Finally, someone who gets it." That might be the biggest takeaway of all, because what this moment truly represents is more than just a political win or a viral zinger. It's a warning to the old guard, from both parties, that the next generation is ready. They're informed, they're passionate, and they're not afraid to speak up, speak out, and challenge anyone who underestimates them. In this round, Karoline Leavitt didn't just hold her own, she won. And as we look ahead to 2024, one thing is clear: the rules have changed. The players are younger, louder, and smarter. The fight is more personal than ever, and for every James Carville stuck in the past, there's a Karoline Leavitt ready to lead the future. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more bold, no-nonsense political stories like this, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. We're just getting started, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.